Dynamic duo. I haven't got that sound effect this week. I wish I had it now. Hello, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, Paul. You?
Hey, good. I can't actually hear you. Let's try again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
now?
I got you down. Yeah. They could hear you. I think they could hear you. It's me that couldn't hear you. So it is Tuesday. I have a guest, Dr Barrie Trower. What an interesting character. Been talking to him last night, catching up on what he's up to today, and what you've been watching him as well, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
He has got a wealth of information, most of which I haven't actually heard before. No. I haven't actually heard this detail. I haven't heard this level of detail that he's going to give us, and how it plays into the global agenda that we're all aware of. Mm-hmm. And the way he puts it forward in such precise and clear fashion is a little bit terrifying, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's just a little bit terrifying. Caught the end of Ben's show. I do like Ben. I do. He sounds a lovely fella. He does. I do like. I've never met him, but he sounds absolutely lovely. So I'm not going to mess too much with the news actually, because I know he's got so much to say that in the next few minutes I'm actually going to get him on.
Go for
and
it.
It may well be that we're going to keep him till close to our time. This isn't a show I think where we're going to have to say too much, are we?
No.
Apart from to give him a breather. To have a cup of tea.
Yeah, let him have a drink.
Yeah, because what a gentleman he is. I won't give the bio yet. I won't ask you to give the bio yet.
No.
And we always do the Agenda 21 roundup, don't we, on Radio 4?
We do, yeah.
And more synchronicity from last week for you, wasn't it?
All right, yeah. It was the three C's.
Yeah.
3 C's: cancer, China, and nuclear power.
All right.
Now, how do we get 3 C's? Cancer, knocking China, and nuclear power.
Yeah.
It's going to give us all cancer, isn't it?
Oh,
so,
God, I mean...
along with everything else.
Tonight's information that we're going to try and get Mr Trower to share, I mean, I don't even know if we'll have enough time. I don't even know if we'll have to invite him back for a second time. I am so now aware of how much he's got to say that it is not my job to rush him along at all.
Oh, no.
No, because it's so clear and concise, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But Radio 4 are up to their old tricks, aren't they? I mean, everything's going perfectly well. Get yourself ready to... What we need is, we need to compete with China, which means that we actually need...
lowering wages.
We need to lower wages, don't we? This is a global economy now, and if we want to compete, we're going to have to consider our wages are going... I mean... Yeah, I know.
I was just thinking, are these journalists? I was shouting at the radio. Are these journalists going to go first?
You go. Right.
You go first.
We'll start at the top.
Stop. Yes.
We'll start at the top. Right. Lead by example.
Yeah.
You guys. Right. There will probably. I mean, we will get the headlines. I mean, there's a headline somewhere that I haven't printed out this evening. That's the Education Minister's got a £366,000 bonus for some reason. I didn't have time to print that out because I knew we wouldn't have a long time to speak about the news. I felt that, to actually take up the time with what you and I regard as Twitter.
It is.
It is Twitter.
It is, yeah.
I mean, from the moment I heard Twitter, I was thinking of the Christmas tree and the eagle.
Yeah.
And the eagles and the owls, they always nest at the top, don't they?
They do, yeah.
And there's shit on everything below it.
And prey on everything below it as well, don't they?
I know. And I've just, as soon as Twitter came along about 3 years ago, I often thought, that's what it is. It's the Christmas tree control system, isn't it? Mm. It is. Yeah, I've had so many instances of synchronicity this week, but like I say, I'm not going to mess about telling you all about those. Play it together in Electric Dreams, because that's going to fit in exactly with what we're going to be talking about. And I'll get our guest on the line in about 3 minutes' time when we've got our beers poured. Right, let's not waste too much more time then with Mr M&M, like toy soldiers. Let's get ourselves sorted out here and get our guest on.
You're listening to Critical Mass Radio. Now, it's our turn.
Right, let's have a go then. Let's have a go. Hopefully you can hear. We're dialing in. Right, who have we got, matey?
On the show tonight, Dr Barrie Trower is a former Royal Navy microwave weapons expert and former Cold War captured spy debriefer for the UK intelligence services. Mr Trower is a conscionable whistleblower who lectures around the world on hidden dangers from microwave weapons and everyday microwave technologies such as mobile phones and Wi-Fi.
Right, well, thank you. A very good evening to you, sir, Mr Dr Barrie Trower. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, I'm not a doctor.
Right, I do apologise there, I do apologise, but you might as well be with the information you have, sir. I'll tell you, I've been listening to you now for just a little while, and I am absolutely amazed at what it is that you've discovered and what it is that you share with us. And after all my times of actually looking into what the future holds and what's going on, your information is something I did not come across till around about a month ago, when the station manager gave me an interview that you did with a Swedish gentleman, about an hour's interview, and I was absolutely taken aback. So, thanks for joining us from your home, and I'm not going to ask you where to start, I'm going to ask you, where do we start?
It's very kind of you, sir. You can ask anything at all about anything at all. You obviously have a list there. Whether you want to start with governments, government lies.
Just like me, you're thinking, like, where do we start? Now,
but I can tell you one thing that really I find amusing is that 45 years ago, when I was briefed into gathering information. Yeah, I've got you now, yep.
Oh, Barry, I'm having a technical nightmare. The one thing I try and do different, and then I fall to pieces. Right, I do think we're back in business properly now. Let's start at the beginning. Your career starts in the 60s working for the government. So could we perhaps just a real quick edit from the 60s right through to the 90s when you were able to start to speak out about what's going on? Could just a quick edit, would that be okay?
Absolutely. It's anything you say, sir. Anything you say. Yeah, in the 60s, I trained with the government microwave warfare establishment. I studied all aspects of microwave warfare because microwaves in the 60s and the 50s were used as stealth weapons, as they still are today. When I left the military, one of my tasks, and a very small part of my task, was to gather information on captured spies, international persons of interest, terrorists, on all aspects of their work, which included, obviously, microwave warfare, because microwaves were weapons in those days. And since then, I've taught advanced physics, both theoretical and practical, obviously with some mathematics. I'm the author of 2 Tetra reports on the Tetra airwave system that the emergency services use. And I'm traveled the world answering questions as I'm doing now, sir.
Well, I got to say that is very kind of you to join us. Now, I don't. Microwaves to me didn't exist in reality till about 1980 when we got our kitchen domestic appliance, and we all thought it was it was just the greatest leap forward in technology. And I remember one of the first jobs I had was working for my auntie and uncle. They had a ready meal type factory. And my job was to go around and try and sell microwaves to the premises that were going to be using their meals because they were microwavable. And it was a great little business. And I remember being told that they cook from the inside out. And I thought, well, it doesn't look like they cook from the inside out, but I believed it. I believed that. And that's my first meeting with microwaves. But your meeting with microwaves was as a weapon, wasn't it?
They became weapons in the 1950s when it was realized that a very long, low dose of microwave irradiation, much, much lower than you would ever use in a microwave oven, an undetectable dose, was accumulative in the body. The damage was accumulative. And it became a perfect weapon for 2 reasons. One is that if there are dissidents or people the government doesn't like, and I'm referring to documents that I have read, namely the women protesters outside American base, Greenham Common, Catholics in Northern Ireland, they were deliberately microwaved to cause physical and neurological damage, as other countries in the world were using it and are today. They can be used to cause any number of psychiatric, psychological problems, down to physical damage, with the heart, the eyes, any organ, and the end result, if you wish, leukemia and cancer.
Now, this technology obviously appeared after the Second World War, and the atrocities that were committed in the Second World War, they were certainly, in some part, meant to be answered by the Nuremberg trial. But it appears that the code they promised to abide by there doesn't appear to have been followed by those that are not following it.
Oh, sir, no. In fact, the countries that sat on the Nuremberg trials, they actually carried on the experimental work after they hanged the scientists that they wanted to hang. They actually, it was called Operation Paperclip. Some of the people who carried out the human experiments in the Second World War were given new identities, and their information was used, and they actually carried on working with the British, American, Canadian scientists, and they carried on as they are today, experimenting on people to the point of death.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you there. Some people I know that work within the NHS, and I know the NHS work to the Nuremberg Code as well, don't they, in some departments?
I'm not sure I understand the question. When you say they work to the Nuremberg Code, the Nuremberg Code actually says that it is illegal to carry out human experimentation without the full consent of the person being experimented on.
Mm-hmm. So, are they using that code then and twisting the rules, if you might say?
Well, I mean, the people who are experimenting on people without their consent, it's a very... a law was introduced a few years ago in the EU that said a certain amount of human experimentation would be permissible, and it left a very grey area. Now, the governments and people have interpreted this, that you can experiment on people to the point of death and suffering, but in fact they can't. I mean, obviously the problem is you've got to take the government to court, and the English and the American, the CIA, and the Canadians, if you look at any trial that has recently been to court, you'll notice that they all take 50 years. So even if you wanted to take them to court today, it would be 50 years before you got there. But they have this active denial policy whereby it takes 50 years to take them to court.
Yeah, and the opposite, we're given the opposite illusion, aren't we, that because of this culture of naming and blaming and insurance companies and solicitors that get together to say that we can sue them is just a nonsense, really, isn't it?
Oh, well, it is. It depends who you... I mean, if you want to take, I don't know, something to do with a road accident, that will be in court in no time. But if it is a serious job, if you are taking the Ministry of Defence or somebody like that to court, then you've got to count on being alive in 50 years' time. That is their strategy. And in 50 years, both the English and the CIA and the Canadians, they will refuse to turn up. They will, first of all, they will say that the memory of the people wouldn't be sound enough to give evidence. If that doesn't work, they will claim the Official Secrets Act, and they will refuse to turn up. And the case will be heard without them. But one of the things that people don't realise, and is absolutely true in this country, is that we have a band of scientists, and not many, and we have people who instruct the scientists, and they are totally above and outside the law. They have total anonymity, they have total immunity, they can experiment on people, they can kill people, they can have them committed to psychiatric institutions for life. They can actually do all of this to people, and we're not talking a few, we are talking thousands. They can do this, and they know they will never ever appear in court. They are above High Court judges, they are above the Queen, but they are totally above and outside the law, and they will do it, and they get away with it.
You certainly beg the question there that how much higher does this go? You might have figured, actually, I've made a major faux pas here, and that is that I haven't introduced my partner here sat with me is Andy. It's Andy and Paul that are chatting to you. You've probably figured you're speaking to two different people, and I apologise for not bringing you in, my
Sorry,
friend.
mate, we had a few technical difficulties.
We did have a few
it threw us a little bit.
I got a little flustered. But if we're above monarchy, where are we? Where are we?
There is a group of people, or there are a group of people, and it is we have scientists and people who authorize the scientists. It comes from us, the CIA, the National Security Advisors in America, in Canada. There are a group of people who decide how many tens or even hundreds of thousands of people are going to be experimented on, what the experiments will do, how they will monitor it, and they have permission from somebody to go ahead and do it. And I can tell you now, there are well over 100,000 people in this country at this point in time being experimented upon. And if you look at some of the blurb that they put down, the government scientists put down, they say we cannot rule out severe physiological or psychological damage, and we cannot rule out cancer. And these people do not know they're being experimented on. And that is going on here, Canada, United States, and I think it should be stopped.
I think it should be stopped as well. I mean, your specialist field is the microwave field, but we do have guests on every week, and they all tell us the damage that they're doing to us, and the human experiment continues, whether it be the chemtrailing, whether it be the contents of our food, which is questionable, and then but the microwaves is something that we want to concentrate on this evening, because this is something that I don't think I understood until very recently, and I'm not claiming I understand it now, but I'm aware that it is a present danger that we should at least be speaking out about. So if we can move along from the 60s, I mean, your real specialist area for today, in this time and place, is the Wi-Fi and the mobile phone industry, isn't it? Because that's where the story really develops into one of horror, really.
Well, it is mainly the Wi-Fi, because when I looked, I mean, I've given a lot of lectures around the world on this topic, and when you look at just an ordinary classroom of children with Wi-Fi in the classroom, the level of microwave irradiation going into the ovaries of the young girls during the Cold War, when women were irradiated intentionally, levels lower than you would find in an ordinary classroom, levels lower, were known to cause 57.7% miscarriages, and those who didn't miscarry had genetically deformed children. And that is what we are going to expect with our children when they grow up and when they have children.
I was just listening to the word you're using there, irradiate. How do you actually irradiate somebody?
Well, the microwaves, they go through the body like they would a microwave oven. They go through the body and they cause damage to the cellular structures. But what a lot of people don't realize is that certain areas of the body and the egg follicles inside the ovaries of the young girls, they are actually 10 times more susceptible to this radiation than other parts of the body. And a lot of the scientists don't realize that. And what we are doing with our young girls is we are risking quite a number of genetically deformed children and or miscarriages and or ovarian cancer when they grow up and marry and decide to have children.
Mm-hmm. And I know they're having a vaccination programme through the schools at the moment, aren't they, as well, which is linked to the cervical cancer and all that kind of thing as well.
But they are, but it's not going to prevent this.
No.
I mean, no injection will repair mitochondrial genetic damage in the ovaries. And that is the mitochondrial DNA. You know, all of the schoolgirls now, they have approximately 400,000 eggs, of which some of them on their monthly cycle may be fertilized once they reach puberty. Now, if there is damage to the genetic structure of those eggs, it isn't just the one child who is born, because it's irreparable and it follows the maternal line. So if you have a girl who has damage, that damage will come out in her daughter. When her daughter has a baby, it will come out in her daughter, and her daughter, and her daughter. So what we're doing is we're actually condemning the entire female race forever until there is no more females in that line.
No, I think we've just got to take just take a moment there, because that is a line that I've never heard anybody else say before.
Oh, it is, and I can promise you now, I sat for 25 minutes with the school secretary, the minister, Nick Gibb. For 25 minutes I sat there, I put the proof, not evidence, proof. I have government proof that says these microwaves at this level will cause this. Can't be argued with. I put it in front of him. I spoke to him for 25 minutes, and I wasn't alone. There were witnesses there. He looked me straight in the eyes and he said, "I won't read it." And I said, you know, this is what you're doing to all of the girls in your school. Following that, I saw my own MP, Mel Stride, and I said, I want to make an appointment to see the Prime Minister. I'm trying to prevent a catastrophe in 20 years' time with genetically born children that will make the drug they took, which I've forgotten the name of, but for pregnancy, for being sick. I can't think of it at the moment. No, but I asked to see the Prime Minister, Mel Stride. I asked to see the Prime Minister to explain this. Thalidomide, that's what it was.
Yep.
I mean, it's going to be 100 times worse than thalidomide, 100 times worse, easy. And I asked to see the Prime Minister. He said, okay. He went off. 2 days later, a letter came back. The Prime Minister is too busy to discuss this.
Now, I know it's easy for us to sit here and say that they're all in it together, and this is an agenda to force eugenics upon the population. This is the Darwin theory of evolution, and this is their right to do so. But I put it to you that I don't think the politicians actually know what to do with this information in many ways. They're controlled from a higher force. I wish it was us and our wishes, but that isn't the truth and hasn't been for a long time. The politicians are controlled from a higher force. They're puppeteered, and they dance to somebody else's tune, and we pay the bill.
There are two things here, sir. Interestingly enough, when I started, I was an agent, a government agent. I worked in secret. I don't like the term secret agent because people think of James Bond, and that's a load of rubbish. I was an agent. I was a gatherer of information. And my main brief, I mean, spies were a part of it, but they were a small part. My main brief, 45 years ago, and this is interesting, and this bounces off what you've just said, sir. My main brief 45 years ago were two groups of people that I was investigating. The first were senior officers in the London Metropolitan Police for corruption. The second were senior government officers for corruption, namely going to the Playboy Club, the Mayfair clubs, who they were meeting, who they were talking to, all that sort of stuff. Now, roll the clock forward 45 years, look in any paper today, any investigation today, the two main bodies being investigated are the London Metropolitan Police and the government officials. Nothing has changed in 45 years. They are as corrupt today as they were then. And this is one of the reasons why Wi-Fi and the microwave industry are swooping over this country, not in other countries, but in this country, and it is to do with corruption. It is industrial corruption with government.
It's corporate business and government, isn't it? I think the word is fascism, isn't it?
Corporate business and government, they are too corrupt, and they have gone so far. It's a runaway train now. I think they wouldn't know how to stop if they wanted to, but I mean, at the end of the day, what we're looking at is people who want to get their children into Eton, they want their knighthoods, they want there to be members of the favourite clubs or whatever, and as long as they've got that, we have the Nick Gibb attitude, looking at me saying, I won't read it.
It is scary. I mean, I understand the mindset because I see the mindset and I read about the mindset, and the mindset is, I have such a small time to make something of this position, and we think that's to do good. And I think people do walk into politics naively, thinking that they can change politics, and I don't think it takes very long before politics actually changes them. It's so easy to see that you can watch these you can watch the evil taking over them. They're bright and breezy when they walk in, but it doesn't take long at all before they have that blank stare that will lie to you all day and sleep well at night time. But the question I have is that these people are actually bringing the health consequences onto themselves, because we talk about Wi-Fi in schools, but we've come a little further than that, because now we're talking about the 4G network, which is been launched today actually. And I wanted to ask you about the storm in America later. Please remind me, because I think there's something to talk about there. But the 4G network has been launched in this country in 10 cities today, I think. And that is the everything, everywhere, super speed, wireless internet. And, once the whole country becomes Wi-Fi, I mean, how do you escape it?
Well, I mean, eventually enough people will be ill. It's like smoking, and enough people will die before they say, whoops, we've probably made a mistake here. But, I mean, they actually have all of their escape routes now, because the government's advice to children, if you actually read the books, the government's advice to children is they should use cell phones only in an emergency. The European Union's advice to schools is, initially they said ban Wi-Fi, but they were pressured out of that, so they changed it to a wired system is preferred. Now, when all of these people, and we are getting leukemia clusters in schools now, the government's answer is, our advice is that children should be exposed to microwaves only in an emergency, and the European Union say a wired system is preferred. So, in fact, the government have actually washed their hands on this. They will say it's down to the school governors and they will take the blame, or it's down to the parents. They will take the blame. But now you cannot blame the government because the advice is there.
Right, yeah, they like you say, they've put an escape route in.
They've got
in
escape.
the clause.
And in fact, people who have cell phones, I don't have one, but if you look at one, it actually says in the health guidance in the back in the small print, it says, if you're making a long call, they don't define what long is, but if you're making a long call, use a landline. Do not use if you are pregnant. Do not carry it near your abdomen if you are pregnant or you're a child. Do not hold it within 0.98 of an inch to your skin. I mean, there are loads of things like this. So, in fact, and when you sign the contract, you also sign to say you will not take the industry to court should you be made ill or get cancer.
Wow. Wow, this is... you see... You halfway know these things, but when you hear it in the cool, cold light of reality, you think, we're actually walking around with the very gadgets that they've got us addicted to, that are going to actually, at the very best, shorten our lifespan, and at the very worst, cause a brain tumour to shorten our lifespan considerably more. And we've had those headlines in the UK about, it's now confirmed that cell phones can cause brain tumours. And...
I can go one better than that, sir.
Yep.
There are, to my knowledge today, 6 High Court cases proving these microwaves cause cancer, High Court cases. There are 19 other legal judgments from magistrates or mayors. There are 14 epidemiological studies on hundreds and thousands of people over 10 years each, proving they cause cancer, and there never was any doubt. We knew, and I can tell you, I'll tell you exactly why we're in this mess, and it's because of the Americans. In 1976, after it was about 8,300 research papers from America, the CIA, us, the Canadians, they decided that microwaves would cause cancer, would cause severe neurological damage, would cause all of the other illnesses. And I have the document, and the document came out in 1976 from the National Intelligence Agency in America. And what it said was basically that we need to suppress this because, one, it would have an effect on lawsuits for people who could take the industry to court, and secondly, it would affect industrial profit. And the advice from the American agency was you've got to set a safety standard that is so high that you can always say, when somebody comes up to you and says, we're getting cancer, your stock answer is, you are below the safety level. And the safety level, would you believe, is a warming of the skin for 6 minutes. And that is it. That is the only safety level that exists, is how warm you feel after 6 minutes. And that is it.
Now, I mean, I am taken aback because this is so available for everyone. I mean, the mainstream media, which I think we're going to have to rename that. We're going to have to rename it in a different way because although they do challenge the corruption that goes on, it's so distracting and nobody ever gets into trouble. I mean, whoever goes to jail, I don't remember. And if they go to jail, they're out in a month's time. But these subjects, they do not touch. These subjects do not make the front pages. And even if they do, it's usually parked next to a celebrity photograph or some sort of animal welfare story. And because of where we've got to today, and mind control is where I'd like to go next if we may, because of where we've got to today, we cannot seem to actually absorb this information and realise it as a threat to our safety. This is a threat to life. our instinct should immediately kick in and be at least concerned as to what's been done. And for some reason, and I can't put a word that makes sense to it, we don't appear to react. How can that be done?
I can go one better than that, sir. I'm not boasting when I say this, but as you know, I lecture all over the world, and I've probably sat down in private conversations with between 30 to 40 kings, queens, royal people, leaders of countries, leaders of government, leaders of peoples, that sort of person, between 30 and 40. And one king, I was sitting having a dinner with one king, and he just leaned forward on his table, and he looked me straight in the eyes, and he said, "I'll tell you what, Barrie," he said, "in 10 to 15 years, I am going to lose the viability of my country." He said, "When this industry moved in," he said, "I noticed I've lost my pollinating insects, which means I have to start importing food. I have up to 40% more sick people with microwave sickness now, which means I have to start importing drugs." He said, "I'm losing my workforce," and he said, "I am losing the viability of my country, and that is where we are going." And I say this and if you Google my name and you look at any talks I'm giving on the internet in these countries, it is one of the things I say. And I say to people, you are going to lose the viability of your country.
This is, it's astounding stuff. I'm trying to recall who said it. I think it was Einstein said that following the disappearance of the bees, he gives humanity about 4 years, I think he said.
Oh, you're right. I mean, I've been invited twice to speak at the Glastonbury Festival, and one of them was to the beekeepers, and I referenced 14 different research studies, some done by professors who are beekeepers themselves, and the poor bee doesn't stand a chance with microwaves. Everything about the bee is irritated by microwaves. The same with birds, and oddly enough, the same with crawling insects like ants. And this has been published in the world's leading scientific journal, Nature. I've actually done an article on this. I mean, we know it's happening.
This is the collapse of the food chain, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
In the countries that this has been applied to, this is the collapse of the food chain, the installing of everlasting sickness in the population and early death.
Not quite.
Oh, okay.
But the other thing that the leaders of countries and people have told me, they said the very countries that come in with all of these microwave towers and put them up and then start causing the problems, the very countries that do that are the countries that come in to offer aid. They have medicines, they have food, and they come in to offer aid, and then what these leaders say to me, they say they come in with all of this aid, but then there is a price. And the price is either immigration and mining rights in our countries, or they want land for military bases, or they just want to come in and have land and bring their people in. So, as one person, and I wish I were the one that were clever enough to think this up. But I wasn't. As one leader said to me, he said, if I wanted to take over a country today, he said, I wouldn't send bombers and tanks. He said, I would go in with microwave transmitters. and the people would pay me to go in there and put them up, and then all I had to do was sit and wait, and as soon as I saw they were in difficulty, I move in with the drugs, I move in with the aid, the food, and then I can get my people into their country for military bases, mining rights, land. And this isn't theoretical, this is happening now. Actually happening in quite a few countries, if you start looking around.
You are, yeah, you're certainly sharing with us that...
main perpetrators are the Indonesians and the Americans. They are the ones that are moving in.
Well, I can't disagree that appears to be what's happening. And it's a plan now that you can see that was hatched in the 60s. Because we're told that the internet in its current form, or what was the original form that we were given it, we were told it was a military tool for the 60s. But the genius of these people to invent these things and then to actually use them as a weapon while making us pay for it is something that I marvel at. It's not because I'm impressed by these people. I'm actually bloody terrified by these people.
Well, if you knew the abilities of an ordinary single cell phone, they can hear everything you say, whether it is on or off. If you have one of those little camera devices, they can even photograph you, provided it's pointed in the right direction. They know exactly where you are every second of the day, provided you're carrying it. They can lock onto you with a device called CellDAR, which is rather like radar, only with cell phones and cell towers. And it's a very high resolution. So you can be followed. They can follow you even in your house. And the picture is quite sharp. And every single cell tower has the ability to track you by computer and follow you. They can follow you in your house. They can watch you while you're in bed. They can even watch you while you're on the toilet.
Yeah, I know. And I knew this stuff. Microwaves can see through walls, can't they?
And it's not just microwaves. There are other waves they put in with them. And there is a device now which can actually measure. The range is 164 feet. Provided it is within that range. But they can actually measure your brain scan and atomically the hormones which are flowing around your body.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm saying amazing, but I should be using the word terrifying.
Terrifying, yeah.
Because this is a level of control that has never been achieved on each individual on this planet before. And this level of control, it doesn't bode well for our futures at all.
But this isn't control, this is monitoring.
But it's going to move to control. I mean, it won't stop there, will it? I mean, I wanted to perhaps, if I can just go back a little bit, to what's achievable individually using mind control.
Onto mind control.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping to... Because it does appear to me that each individual will be able to be remote controlled in the future.
No, they are now. Can be now. I hate to tell you this, but the first paper on this was written in 64 BC by a gentleman called Ptolemy, who was a Greek scientist living in Egypt. And he found that various types of radiation that he could generate in those days, if he made a wheel, a solid wheel, and then drilled holes through, and he spun the wheel in front of your eyes, the radiation coming through the holes into your eyes could make you act out of character. And it was a bit of a party game back then, 2,000 years ago. He found that various flashes could cause fits, and other flashes could make you go sleepy. Other flashes would make you aggressive. And one of my briefs, when I was talking to the captured spies in the Cold War, it's not the microwaves, it's the pulses that they put in, or the modulations. They entrain the brain. They interfere with the brain's natural waves that the brain uses to communicate with itself. So, for instance, if you pulse 6.6 pulses a second, you can induce sexual aggression in men. I had a list when I sort of finished doing what I was doing. I had a list of probably 30 to 40 pulse frequencies that could induce 50 to 60 neurological and physiological things in and around the body. Now the last time I heard of the list, it was some 600 strong. And these can be beamed on you from any microwave transmitting tower, any microwave tower.
I've sort of heard some parts of this interview. I've heard some parts of what you're saying now, and I'm starting to look around because I'm reading and learning that these new light bulbs are not for my benefit, really. I mean, if they were, I wouldn't have to use 3 instead of 1 just so I can read. These new light bulbs, I believe, they are emitting a radiation or a microwave type energy as well.
To be honest, I don't know. I've never studied light bulbs.
Well,
to be honest,
these new.
I do know that from the 50s up to today, pulse frequencies in microwaves were used, and in fact, I've got the papers. And the list of people, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people over 30 to 40 years, 50 years. And I mean, the groups of people, depending on, they used children above the age of 4, pregnant women, psychiatric patients, prisoners, servicemen, students, homosexuals, specific religious groups, Muslims, Catholics. I mean, when you start looking at the list of people who were targeted, it's horrific and a success. And this has gone to court. I'm not sitting here making this up. It's actually gone to court. You're looking, a success would be if you could target a person to the point where they were diagnosed with some form of paranoid schizophrenia and were locked away for the rest of their lives. That would be a success. So you are taking totally innocent people who have no idea what's happening to them. You are turning them into criminals or psychiatric patients or causing their death, and you are studying them and making notes on them, and tens of thousands of people were treated like that. Tens of thousands.
You're making me ask the question now that over the years, the lone gunman shootings that we've experienced throughout the UK and America primarily, these lone gunman shootings that from JFK to John Lennon to carrying right on into the school shootings that appear to be far too regular. I mean, are we at least able to consider that these may be being remote-controlled people to do this sort of thing?
I don't like the word remote controlled. If you're talking, can somebody, if you're saying theoretically, could I take you and brainwash you to the point where you would kill somebody, I would say it is so easy. Yes, it could be done without any trouble at all. The ordinary person, even service personnel, the ordinary person can be broken down to what we would call a quivering total hallucinogenic jelly in just 30 hours. That's without pain, without drugs, without hypnosis, 30 hours. And once you've got somebody in that state, all you have to do then is using what is called synthetic telepathy, where you can put a voice in the head that they don't hear outside the head. You can build them up, and you build them up to trust that particular voice. This is done by psychiatrists and psychologists for the very reason that they know the areas of the brain, they know what to say, how to say it. But it is so easy to harm a person and then blame a specific race or a specific group of people, and you just bring them up and down and up and down and up and down to the point where they know the only thing they can do is kill these people. So if you're saying, can it be done? The answer is yes, and it is so simple I could do it. If you're asking, has it been done? The answer is, I don't know, because it is unprovable.
And isn't that the plausible deniability that they always look for?
Yeah, it is unprovable. It's provable at the time if you swoop on them and you do. There are probably about 11 different tests you can do, because when a person's in this state, there are chemicals, enkephalin, anandamide, auxin. There are lots of different chemicals in the brain that will be out of proportion with the rest of the brain's chemicals. There will be blood fluid tests that can be done, skin tests that can be done, but you've got to swoop on them very, very quickly and take samples very quickly. If they've been arrested and thrown into jail for a day, then the evidence is gone. But if you're saying, can it be done? Very, very easily, very easily. Has it been done? It has never been proven.
Right, okay. Now, I'd like to sort of start to bring the mobile phone back in again, but this time...
Up to you.
But this time a slightly different subject, because here is something that I learnt just 24 hours ago, and that is that mobile phones and CO2 have an amazing connection.
Oh, of course. The telecommunications industry is now the biggest polluter of carbon dioxide on the planet. It superseded the aviation industry about 2-3 years ago. So the communications industry now puts more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere than anybody else. It's something like the equivalent of 100 million cars on the road extra. It's something like 110 million tons. And the effect of this has already been measured, and there was an article in Scientific American just a couple of months ago showing that when you put, we know anyway, when you put carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, whether or not you believe in global warming, that can be argued. But what cannot be argued is when you put carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, it mixes with the water vapor in the air. And when you mix carbon dioxide with water vapor, it takes the hydrogen from the water vapor, and when you have hydrogen and carbon and oxygen, you have carbonic acid. And the acid comes down as rain, acid rain. That goes into the oceans. And Scientific American have already said that the level of acid in the oceans has now reached critical values for the plankton. And people listening may think, well, okay, microscopic organisms in the sea, but in fact, they don't realize that the plankton in the sea that are almost going to be wiped out by the acid, they are the biggest producers of oxygen on the planet. They produce 2/3 more oxygen into the atmosphere than trees. So if we start knocking off the plankton, with the acid rain, we are going to cut the oxygen supply to the planet by 2/3.
Well,
it's democide, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's democide. The word is democide, and that is death by government and others through conspiracy. I mean,
it's what I do. So, I mean, I lecture, and I've just been to Norway before that, Denmark, and I say this in all of my lectures, and I dare say, if anybody, I don't have a computer, but if somebody Googles my name, I will guarantee that I will be saying it. It's all over the internet. It's just that the governments, they live for today. They want their knighthoods, they want their children at Eton, they want their Rolls Royces, their big houses. They are so corrupt. They want to live for today. They can't worry about what's going to happen in 50 years' time, as long as they get what they want today.
I've just made a few notes as we've been talking. I just wondered if there was good microwaves and bad microwaves. I wrote down Tesla and Marconi.
There are good microwaves. In fact, the communications industry could be made safe. There is no problem there. I mean, there are good microwaves. They can be used to treat sort of damaged parts of the body by administering low levels of internal heat. There is no problem there. It's when you have a continuous pulsed low system going in your body day and night. Problem. And the industry could be made safe. The problem is that you would cut their profit margin by about 80%. I mean, 20% of the trillions they already make, enough for them. They want it all. But they would lose about 80% of their profit margin.
Right, and that answers the question then. That's why we're getting the bad microwaves.
And be made safe. And, I mean, a brilliant scientist in this country, Dr Andrew Goldworthy, he's written a paper on how they can be made safe. But they won't have it.
No.
Well, we do know that everything they do is pre-planned in advance that this conspiracy is perhaps the biggest one we're revealing, isn't it, really? In today's modern world. I mean, I know a lot of people say the Masons and their conspiracy, but I think that's for another day.
Small fry.
This is completely different, and this is something that I'm delighted that you'll share with us. Yes, you're right. You are right. You're prolific on the internet, and I'm delighted that you are. And we'll add to that. We'll add to that energy and that information, because as soon as this show's finished this evening, it will be converted on YouTube as quickly as possible.
I'd like to tell you why the government does nothing.
I'd love you to.
I'll tell you why, and it's not just us, it's most governments, is because the Secret Service have the ability to listen and watch and monitor every single person that carries a cell phone, and that is, I would think, 99.9% of the population. That even if your cell phone is off, if you go into the doctors and it's in your pocket, they can hear what you're talking about. If you're with a solicitor, they can hear what you're talking about. If you're with any group of people, they will hear what you're talking about. The Secret Service, if they want to, they can monitor every single thing that you say, where you go, and they can even watch you with the little camera bit if they want to. So when you have this ability, it is the Secret Service that really benefits, and this is why the government and the industry are bedfellows, because without the communications industry, the Secret Service would have to go back to following people on foot. And the industry, because they help the government will give them anything they want. They give them the lax safety levels that they need. Well, in fact, there are no safety levels now. So the industry, it's why they don't have to worry about planning permission. The industry can basically do what it likes, and the government will not go against it because of its usefulness. And that is why.
But they're killing themselves and their own families as well. They're killing our own planet. I mean, is it that they just don't know this? Or is it just that they
I can answer that as well. The average MP and the average minister haven't the knowledge that you and I have from this conversation. The problem comes with the advisors. These are the people that are causing the problem. You have just a handful of advisors in the government, and they are the only people you are allowed to ask, and they connect the industry and the government. And when you look at where they live and where their children go to school and their escape plan, they're okay.
Yeah, there's two governments, isn't there, really? There's the government that we see, which is the Punch and Judy show, and then there's the government that sits quietly behind closed doors in dusty corridors and big oak-beamed rooms, and they never actually change. They get on with the business of running the business. And the establishment always maintains their power and never once gave us the chance to vote it away.
But you look into the background of the advisors. As you say, they are non-elected. You very seldom even learn their names, but when you do and you look at the connections that they have with business and government, they are the real people. And when the MPs slowly work their way up, and they get to a minister, the minister will go to the advisor will lie to them, the minister believes the lie, tells the MP, and the lie just keeps coming down. So you have, and it's just a half a dozen people, and they are holding the country to ransom.
And I know you're right. I know you are. I don't have to check anything because it's the only thing that makes sense. I mean, we've read a lot. We do read a lot. We try and learn something every time we spend time together. And I know you're right. But what is the reason for killing the people and killing the planet? I mean, we haven't quite got to the remarkable rises in cancer throughout the world. We haven't quite got to, why is every generation becoming sicker than the last one? And you're exposing, part of the reason why that is, and why cancer is off the charts. But no matter what research I do, I can't find the exact figures. And I've spent hours today trying to find the exact figures, and I can't get them. Not as so as I'm happy with them, because the figures I can get don't correspond with what I'm seeing. So there must be some reporting differences in what cancer is and what cancer is not nowadays.
Well, I mean, I do have a document in this country whereby one of the cancer statistical bodies, they re-diagnosed 10,000 brain tumours into endocrine cancers. So instantly 10,000 brain tumours came off the statistics, and endocrine cancers go on another bunch of statistics. So it is easy to sit down and massage the figures. When you get to the countries that don't massage the figures, for instance, it's been published in China that there is a 3,000% increase in side-of-the-face cancers, which has been in children, that has been put down to children holding cell phones against their skin. In this country, we do know that child brain tumours is the biggest cause of childhood deaths in the country. We know in the EU that cancer is now at the official epidemic level. We know that cancers, for the first time ever, are exceeding birth rates. But there is also a document, and I've seen it, whereby cancer charities are actually raking in tens and tens of billions of pounds extra because of all the people getting cancer. and when somebody dies of cancer or gets cancer, they benefit. So, in fact, there are people who do benefit from this. And I do know the professor who runs this country's biggest cancer charity, and he is adamant in his statements, and he has always said, and I will quote, microwaves will not cause cancer. And he is also the same person that said the Tetra airwave system is safe. And he is one of the people that everybody goes to in the government for their advice.
Yeah, I was just going to. Can you expand a little bit more on this Tetra? What does Tetra actually stand for?
It's the terrestrial airwave system, which is used by the emergency services. Mm-hmm. It was forced. I was asked to write the initial safety report, and I condemned it because it is too dangerous. It can interfere with the brain. And my original Tetra report is on the internet. If you type in my name, Tetra report for the Police Federation, it's on the internet. I know it is.
I'll look that up.
I condemned it as being too dangerous. Not only me, Sir William Stewart, then the government's top scientist, condemned it for being too dangerous. Lots of people condemned it, but it was forced. It was forced onto the police force by an illegal contract. It was deemed illegal by the European Union because it never went to tender. The document I have was that President Bush, didn't ask, he told Blair, get Tetra into the London police and then sell it to the rest of the world, as many countries as possible. At the moment, it's about 160 countries got it, and you wouldn't believe the number of officers that have contacted me in many countries that are going down with tumours and all sorts from this system. And I have made a bet anywhere in the world when I speak. I say, show me a police station that has more than 100 officers, that's had Tetra for more than 18 months, and I will guarantee that the police violence will have gone up on the general public. Police accidents in car crashes will have gone up. Police cancers will have gone up. Police aggression will have gone up. And police sickness will have gone up. And you show me any police station anywhere in the world where that has not happened. And I challenge you, all of you. And to date, not a single country can show me that.
Do you know? I wish I could say that this is an enjoyable interview, because it's nothing of the sort, is it? But it's not that I'm offended or upset that you're with us. I'm delighted you are. It's the sheer enormity. Mm-hmm. It's the ruining people's lives and futures. It's the poisoning of the dreams and the children. And
there is a reason for Tetra as well, and it's published. Now, I can't verify whether the document is true because I've only ever seen one document, but it makes sense. The gubbins inside the Tetra airwave system is Motorola. Mm. Motorola is American. And I do know that any system that the Americans produce like this, the government has to hold the code keys. In other words, all of the secret codes that are used in this system, the American government has the ability to decode them. And this document that was published, and I can't think of the year at the moment, but I've referenced it in my second higher confidential report for Tetra, which I think ended up on WikiLeaks. I quoted this document, and I said that it is possible, I don't know if they're going to do it or have done it, it is possible, theoretically, for the American Secret Service to listen in to the secret services and police of every country using this system. And to me, it makes sense as to why Bush told Blair, get the London police to use this, nobody will refuse it, and get it sold around the world as much as you can. And to me, that makes sense.
It makes sense to me as well, unfortunately. It does make perfect sense. Now, I do have a question that's been submitted, and it's one that I should have asked before now, but thank you for reminding me. In this world of microwave soup, what can we do individually to at least try and protect ourselves from what is an absolute onslaught of an invisible enemy?
Very little is the answer. Very little. We know that 3% minimum, and it has been quoted as up to 20% of people will be made ill. We know they are called electrosensitives. So we know between 3 and 20% of the people will be ill, and there is virtually no escape. Other people, there are things you can do depending on how sensitive you are to the microwaves. You can, first of all, carry your cell phone in a metal box, like children carry their pencils to school. We had little metal tins, the way you had your protractor and compass. Put your cell phone in there, because even if your cell phone is off, you can be used as a mobile transmitter for somebody else. Now, what that means is, if you're walking around with a cell phone and it's off and it's in your pocket, and there's a person half a mile away in one direction and the cell tower is a half a mile in the other direction, if that person makes a call, their signal can go to your phone, have a boost from your battery, go to the cell tower will send the message back to your phone, onto your battery, and back to the person. So even without your knowledge, you could be a mobile cell tower most of the day. So you've got to cut down the absorption of the body. Carry your cell phone in either, you can get little metallic bags that act like Faraday cages, or a metal tin.
Yeah. Or just throw it away.
If you can, get a detector. You can hire them for a week. They go like Geiger counters. They screech. Go around your bedroom. When you're sleeping is the most dangerous time to be microwaved, because the short version is it can reduce your immune system by 40% if you're sleeping in a microwave field.
Crikey, Moses.
So get a detector, just spin around your bedroom, find out where the main beam is coming from, and put some form of shield up. Radiator foil, not cooking foil, radiator foil on a screen one side of your bed to protect you. It'll reflect it away. You can cut down what you get, but that is at the moment all you can do, and the only reason you can't take the government to court or the industry is because provided you don't feel too hot in 6 minutes, then it is deemed safe.
It's just, I mean, I remember when I first got a mobile phone. I mean, thank Lord now I don't carry it around at all now. In fact, I often offend people by not bothering with it for too long. But popping it in your pocket for the boys and popping it in your shoulder bag for the girls could certainly be part of the reason of the increased rise in testicular and breast cancer.
Well, how many of us use the phone as an alarm clock?
This, funny enough, in Norway just a couple of weeks ago. And I put on the desk in front of me 45 university studies showing that the mammary cells in the breasts of women are particularly sensitive to microwaves. They do not like microwaves. And two things women should never ever do, and these are both published. You should not carry a cell phone over a shoulder bag so that the bag is adjacent to the breast. You should not do that. The other thing you should not do is you should not have, in a bra, a lady's bra, there are metal semicircular things that go underneath the cup. I don't know what they're called. They're like wires, metal wire, semicircular things that go under the cup, that they fix inside the cup of the bra. Now, they will absorb microwaves. It's why you're not allowed to put metal in a microwave oven. When they absorb the microwaves, they re-emit the microwaves at a slightly different wavelength. But because they are semicircular, well, in fact, they're a parabola. Because they are a parabola, the focal point is inside the breast. And so you have this constant focal point just to 200 or 300 cells inside the breast. And that is particularly dangerous. Don't wear a bra that has one of those metal things that goes underneath the cup.
Right, well, thank you for that. And I'm never going to microwave anything. I'm not going to warm anything up in the microwave at all, ever again. I'm not going to bring my phone into the bedroom. God, I know some girls who put it under the pillow. They sleep with it under the pillow.
It's very, very silly, because it when you go to sleep, when you shut your eyes, I'll explain this very simply. When you shut your eyes, light doesn't go through the brain. The pineal gland in the brain detects there is no light, and it produces nighttime melatonin. Nighttime melatonin goes around the body. One of its jobs is to mop up cancer cells and renew the immune system. But when you have microwaves going through your head, it tricks the pineal gland into thinking it's light. So it doesn't produce the nighttime melatonin that it should. And this is why you wake up feeling like you've been in the pub all night drinking.
Well, first thing I'm going to do tomorrow is buy a wind-up alarm clock.
Yeah, I'm looking in my bedroom. I've got the same thing.
It sits at the side of me, and I use it to wake me up on the morning.
And I've got a cordless phone at the other side.
Oh, yeah.
That's dangerous. Cordless phones transmit even when they're off. Even when they're off and they're on the base, they transmit on full power all of the time.
That's going. That's going. That is going.
Cool.
Do you know? We've sort of. I do feel like we've rushed over the subjects, but it's almost too much, isn't it? It's almost. I mean, I'm going to listen back to it and really try and absorb this. Wrong word, I guess. But really try and get this, so I can perhaps speak it into other conversations to enable people to understand what you're saying. But there is one more question that I've got to ask, if I may, and that is that we haven't touched on what a lot of people don't believe is possible, and that is the control of the weather. And that is the bigger microwave technology that I believe is being created in our skies.
Yep. There are several devices. The most famous is called HAARP, H-A-A-R-P, which is a huge, big 48 transmitter site in Alaska. Now, how that can work, as I say, it isn't the only one. People don't realize this, but storm clouds, actually produce gamma rays, radioactive rays, that you get inside nuclear power stations. They produce gamma rays inside them. Normally, these gamma rays, they dissipate into outer space, so there's no problem. But if you drop very, very fine dust particles, aluminium, barium, strontium, if you drop them from chemtrails, chemical trails, or from aircraft into clouds, what happens, or what can happen, is that the gamma radiation in the clouds, it is now reflected off of the dust inside the clouds, and the clouds become supercharged. They become supercharged clouds. Are you still with me?
Yes, we are. We're here.
Supercharged.
We're listening intently.
Yeah. Now, there are two things you can do with supercharged clouds. You can allow the dust to fall to the ground, which is supercharged metal dust. That will affect plant life, animal life, trees. Basically, it will destroy the cell biology and cause damage to cells, plants, whatever.
And us. We're all made of the same stuff, aren't we?
Yep, and us. The other thing you can do with the clouds, if they're supercharged, is if you beam microwaves to them from these super microwaves, and they can go right round the world because they bounce off of the ionosphere. The ionosphere is a thick layer of hydrogen and helium gas around the planet. And at the right angle, 42 degrees, you can actually reflect off of it. So if you bounce off with simple geometry onto the clouds, you can actually move a weather system. Now, when I say move a weather system, you don't have a cloud and it suddenly races across the sky. They follow set paths around the world. And you only have to move a weather system. It's called Lenz's law. When you put a magnetic field up against an electric charge, there is an act of repulsion. So the cloud is repulsed from the microwave field. Now, you don't have to repulse them far because they're already moving. It's like if you have a spaceship that's aiming for the moon. You only have to nudge it, a trillionth of a degree, and by the time it gets to the moon, it'll be hundreds of miles off course. The same with clouds. You only have to move a weather system a tiny fraction, and by the time it's got halfway around the world, it's enough to cause either a drought or a flood in a country. And yes, they can destroy countries, and yes, they can change weather systems, and that technology has been known and practiced on for years.
Yeah, I do believe they used it in Vietnam, didn't they?
You would be amazed. We would want a whole evening to talk about government abuse on people.
We're going to ask for it. We really are. I mean, Mr. Trower, you have been our most knowledgeable guest, perhaps our most knowledgeable guest.
I would say
so. And maybe the clearest to share it. And also the one with the most bad news. But it's not bad news.
Can I make a suggestion, sir?
Yes, you can, thank you.
You will have people listening.
We have.
Saying, I wish they'd asked him that, or I wished he... if anybody cares to email you...
Yep.
Book me again for another day. I work for free. There's no charge. Book me for another time, another day, and have listeners' questions. And I will promise to answer every single question that comes my way. Every one.
You are a gentleman, sir. I do have one to ask, actually. It's been mailed in. We have one mailed. It says... I
can tell you now, sir, the record is just over 7 hours.
Well, I think I wouldn't like to try and do it all in one go. I would love to ask you back in the not so distant future, really, because this is important stuff.
It is.
I mean, some weeks we have a rather more light-hearted approach, but this isn't one of them.
No.
And as time's going by, this light-hearted approach has got to stop. I think, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Now, I do have a question that has been mailed in, if I can ask you it.
Okay.
And it reads like this. So I hope this makes more sense to you than me. Can we earth the waves? Can we earth them, it says. Now, I don't know what that means. It's just a question that's submitted.
It's like earth bonding electricity. Yeah. Can we earth the microwaves?
Can you earth them? Yes.
Okay.
Simple as that.
Earth them. There are several different ways. You can earth. You can absorb them as they come into your house, and you can ground or earth them. If you interfere with the waves in the atmosphere, that is illegal, and you can go to jail.
Is that what that happened to Tesla?
That is actually illegal because they're not only used for telecommunications, they're used for all the emergency services, the armed forces, satellites, military, missiles, and if people start interfering with them outside, you'll have the people dressed in black with machine guns crashing your door down, accusing you of being a traitor.
The rules apply to everybody except them, don't they?
Absolutely, yep.
It's the mafia. It's the truth. It's reality, and we must deal with it. Once enough people know what reality really does look like, will we turn this around? Well, we will eventually.
Turning it around. I mean, I lecture all over the world. I'm getting to very important people, and there are countries now that are sitting up taking notes. Not this one, too much corruption, but there are other countries where we are beginning to put cracks in dams. So we are actually getting somewhere.
I have to say, I must thank you wholeheartedly for your time, for everybody connected with the station. We should get thousands of listens with this, and that's another step forward for this country, which is, as you say, a little bit, it's too corrupt to be changed at the moment.
There is one hope I have in this country. If anyone listening has access to Prince Charles, I would like to meet him. I feel he could probably do something, but my name is so notorious that there is no way I can get hold of him or the Prime Minister or the Queen.
No.
There are too many people. I'm on every single list that I'm probably on so many lists that I've started a new one with my name just on it. As soon as my name pops up, I'm barred, blocked, banned by anyone to do with anything with the government. Even the BBC have banned me. So if anyone has access to Prince Charles, I would do anything to spend an hour and put him in the picture and give him the truth. Well, I think he could actually do something.
Well, I wish you every success. Although I can't claim to be able to help, this might add to the pressure. That's all we can say.
That's all we can say.
We are all, as a people, I think we must be grateful for all you're trying to do. And thank you for letting us help you in that in that fight. We're all in this together, and your time has been much appreciated. Thank you, Barrie.
Well, gather the questions. Call me back.
We will.
You can be sure we will. You've been a marvellous guest. It's been.
Thank you very much.
It's been a wonderful show.
May I just say thank you for your courtesy.
You're welcome.
You are welcome. I've got your address. I'll send a little something in the post. Thank you, and good night to you, sir.
Thank you, Barrie.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, there we are. Wow.
Wow.
I mean, that is possibly our most knowledgeable guest.
Yeah. I've just had that tingling up my spine.
Amazing times.
I've had that a few times with a few guests. I had it with George Atwell.
We live in amazing times. We really. In on 668. So good news. Lots of tips there. Ditch the cordless landline. That's done. Lose the mobile permanently. Done. Plug in instead of Wi-Fi. Done. Turn it off to your side. Marvellous stuff. Microwave out. We've got to start changing. We say we're going to change. We're going to be different. We're going to be the change. I think that's the best advice we've received so far that we can actually physically do now.
Yeah,
and Anon's done it.
Good for Anon.
Marvel. I'm chucking out the phone in my bedroom. That's going.
Yeah.
Right. The alarm clock. That's off tonight.
Yeah. My mobile phone's going downstairs tonight.
Yeah. I've got my old big tick clock.
Yeah.
The big tick clock's going back in.
Go out and buy one of them big Mickey Mouse ones with the bells on the top.
Well, yeah, I think we're going to have to take a step back.
Yeah.
Because where we've stepped into, this reality is not good for us.
No,
so we need to step out of this reality and just take a moment to decide where we want to go into.
Yeah.
But what a gentleman, what a top gentleman. He really... if you do the Google search or the YouTube search for Barrie Trower, you will find that he does have the ear of some very, very important people. And he's real. I know he's real because I only had to ask him once. I didn't have to mess about. He doesn't have a website. You can find his phone number online quite easily. I found it within 5 minutes. I phoned it. I left an answer phone message. An hour later, he phoned back and said, "No problem." It was
lovely.
You know you've got someone who's genuine there. Yeah. A lot of people, used to work for the government, can't be trusted. Don't shoot the messenger.
No,
don't shoot the messenger. If you're going to do that, you shouldn't be listening. You're not ready yet. You're not ready. It is. It's. We live in amazing times, and most people don't realise this is a life full of wonder, isn't it? It is full of wonder.
Yeah.
And it is the wonderful life you ever wanted. Unfortunately, it's not what you hope to see.
No, it's not what you. I'm going to say. The more and more we do that, this is why I love coming on a Tuesday night. Just giving up a few hours to come and sit here with you.
Well, I'll tell you something.
Speak to a gentleman like that who really, really wants to make a difference.
I've got his address. I'm going to send a little something to him and his wife, because I know he's married and I know he spoke about it in other interviews, and you can hear the tone in his voice change when he speaks about her.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they go walks down the beach, because he lives at the other end of the country. I wouldn't be surprised.
I noticed on the YouTube as well that you cannot put comments on. It's been disabled. There's nothing you can go on there. You can click like, but you cannot make a comment on his. Did you notice that?
I didn't notice it. I think there is some you can comment on. Maybe just seen the one.
It was just that one that they wouldn't let me.
Well, sometimes the comments can distract.
Well, look
at our chat box. Though.
Yeah.
Our chat box can be distracting.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking who's in there.
No.
It's just that sometimes the information is more important than other people's opinions.
Yeah, of course it is.
Sometimes you just got to focus on what it is that you need to know today. You know, I'm not going to go either way on that. We have comments. We allow comments on ours. That's absolutely fine. That person who put that was a Swedish interview, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
And they said they didn't want to comment. They just wanted you to enjoy their information.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that as well.
Yeah, me as well.
I'm okay with that. Yeah. Well, it seems almost there's no news stories that can match this, is there?
No.
There's nothing. We've almost. How can you follow that?
You've got to keep.
And the truth is, you can't follow that.
You can't. You've got to keep on course with that.
We've got to inspire, haven't we? We've got to inspire ourselves
and keep it fresh in your mind.
And say it.
Yeah.
Don't listen to it. You've got to start speaking it, haven't you? Because that's the way it becomes real to you and those that are listening.
I'm just thinking now. I'm going to be out looking for a little box to put my mobile phone in.
I didn't ask
a
him
little
what
metal
it was,
box.
But I didn't ask him what that gadget was. You could measure it at home.
Yeah, no, I wrote it down here. Microwave detectors. You can hire them from any hire shop. He said.
Well, I'll be looking for that.
Yeah.
That is. I know. That is why we've been given this information, isn't it? That's why we've been allowed to do this, because the system doesn't care, does it? It does not care. It says, tell them. And like we spoke about earlier before we started, when you say to a child, don't do that, it's bad for you, and it does it, you say, I told you. And then the child does it again, and you say, I told you. And then, look, read this, it's bad for you. And the child keeps doing it. You realise that child is not capable of learning. And we have to be capable of learning, don't we?
We do.
We have to look in the mirror, and the old saying, what have you learnt of value today? Because if you ain't learnt anything different to yesterday, you're playing Groundhog Day.
You are.
Live. That's what it is, it's live. If you have not learnt something of value, then you have just wasted your entire day. You really have, haven't you?
Yeah.
And if we're going to act as adults, then we must stop arguing like children. We must stop doing that. I am aware of some station politics, and I am not going to talk about them on the air at all. I don't talk about emails that I receive. I don't talk about any conversations that we have off the station broadcasting. That's not for me to do. I'm aware that, we have things to talk about. And it's not live. It's person to person without shouting and bawling. Yeah, that's what it's about.
Of course.
So, have a look in the mirror. Did today become a day where you learnt something that you can tell somebody else that will make them the same as you? All right, next week we have an interview with a London Let's Link. It's an alternative currency in use in London. That's what we have next week. A rather more light-hearted type interview. So, yeah, we're going to talk about alternative currencies already operating in London, successfully as well.
Yeah.
Yep, the actual uptake is growing, and people are learning that alternative currencies can work better than the actual existing one that we have. But for now, it is from myself, Paul.
And me.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
You're listening to Critical Mass Radio. Now, it's our turn.